Welcome to my channel, Skyward Stories. Every woman has a secret, a dark fantasy she'll never confess to her friends, never post about online, and never admit to the man she truly wants. She'll laugh it off, pretend it doesn't exist, bury it under casual words like, "I'm fine," or "I don't think about things like that." But the truth, she does. Women carry hidden fantasies. Fantasies of surrender, of being desired without restraint, of losing control, of being chosen in a world full of options. They'll never tell you, because saying it out loud would make them too vulnerable, too exposed. But if you can see these fantasies for what they are, you'll understand a side of female psychology almost no man ever does. And once you understand it, you'll never look at a woman the same way again. 1. The fantasy of total surrender. There's a hidden truth most men don't realize. Even the strongest, most independent woman harbors a secret fantasy of surrender. Not surrender in the sense of weakness, but in the sense of release. In her daily life, she's in control. She makes decisions, manages responsibilities, and carries herself like she doesn't need anyone. But deep inside, there's a longing for the rare man, strong enough to take control, so she can finally let go. This isn't about force, it's about power. Power that is earned, not demanded. Power that's felt, not spoken. When a woman imagines surrendering, she's not fantasizing about being dominated by just anyone. She's fantasizing about being with a man who's such mastery over himself that she can trust him completely. Psychologists call this erotic power exchange. It's the phenomenon where desire intensifies not through equality of control, but through polarity. One partner leads, the other follows. For women, the fantasy often centers on being freed from decision-making, freed from control, freed from the constant demand of independence. Picture this. She doesn't have to think. She doesn't have to worry. She doesn't have to fight. The man she desires simply knows. He leads with confidence, speaks with certainty, and acts with decisiveness. And in that space, her fantasy unfolds, because the more power he shows, the more she longs to give up hers. Most men never awaken this fantasy because they're afraid of leadership. They hide behind passivity, waiting for her to decide, for her to initiate, for her to lead. And every time they do, her secret fantasy dies. But the man who knows how to lead without insecurity, the one who guides with calm confidence, he becomes the embodiment of her darkest, most intoxicating dream. 2. The fantasy of being desired without restraint. Here's the truth. Women are constantly approached, complimented, and admired. But much of it feels shallow. Men wanting them, casually, superficially, or temporarily. What women secretly fantasize about is being desired without restraint. A kind of raw, almost uncontrollable desire that makes her feel like the only woman in the world. This doesn't mean desperation. It doesn't mean clinging. It means depth. It means she feels your gaze linger longer than usual. Not because you're weak, but because you see her in ways no one else does. It means she feels the weight of your presence, the intensity of your attention, the unspoken message that if the world ended tomorrow, you'd still be right there, wanting her the same way. Psychologists call this total object of desire effect. It's when a woman feels fully consumed, not just her body, but her mind, her quirks, her very existence. The fantasy isn't about quantity of desire, but quality. It's not about how many men want her. It's about the one man who desires her with depth, so intense it borders on obsession. But there's the paradox. She'll never admit this. She'll never say, "I want you to want me like you can't stop yourself." Because socially women are trained to hide this hunger. They fear being judged, shamed, or misunderstood. And so the fantasy stays silent, lurking in her mind. The Stoic man doesn't gush, doesn't fawn, doesn't shower her with endless compliments. Instead, he shows desire through presence. His attention is focused, his touch deliberate, his lens charged. She feels it in her bones, that under his calm exterior burns a fire that sees her as more than just another woman, and that restrained intensity makes her crave him even more. This is the fantasy she'll never confess, to be wanted completely, without restraint, by a man who could have anyone but chooses her. 3. The fantasy of losing control in the heat of passion. Control defines much of a woman's life. She controls her emotions in public, controls her appearance, controls her words in conversation, controls her reputation. But in her deepest fantasies, there's a desire to let all of that go, to lose control completely in the arms of a man strong enough to handle it. Imagine this. Her voice rises without planning. Her body responds before her mind can catch up. Her emotions overflow, unfiltered, unpolished, raw. To most people, she's measured, calculated, put together. But with him, the man who awakens this fantasy, she's messy, wild, unrestrained, and instead of being judged, she's embraced. Psychologists call this erotic disinhibition. It's the longing to abandon social rules, to escape the pressure of holding it all together, and to experience herself fully without shame. This is why so many women fantasize about situations where passion overwhelms control, because in reality, they're rarely allowed to let go. But here's the secret. This fantasy only awakens with a man she trusts completely. A man whose strength, steadiness, and presence make her feel safe enough to unravel. Without trust, losing control feels dangerous. With trust, it feels divine. Most men never see this side of a woman because they're too focused on themselves, on their own performance, their own pleasure, their own ego. But the man who watches her, listens to her, and creates the space where her storm can erupt safely, that man becomes unforgettable. Here's the paradox. The more disciplined and grounded you are, the more she feels free to be wild. And that freedom, that loss of control, is the very heart of her darkest fantasy. 4. The fantasy of being chosen. Exclusively in a world of temptations, she sees the world around her. She sees the attention, the flirtations, the messages, the people craving connection. She senses every gaze, every double tap, every compliment that isn't supposed to matter, but does. Deep inside, she longs for one truth above all else, to be chosen by a man who could choose any path, but chooses her. She doesn't want to feel like one option among many. She wants to feel like the rarest treasure, the forbidden secret, the one who stands apart from the crowd, because he wanted her above everyone else. This fantasy of exclusivity isn't jealousy. It's deep emotional safety. It signals that his desire isn't driven by novelty or convenience, but by something real. That she isn't just attracting, she's being selected, chosen, which carries with it drama, risk, and validation. Psychologists talk about perceived scarcity and selective attention. When someone perceives that another could leave at any moment because many options exist, they value what stands apart. And the one who actually picks her over all those options becomes unforgettable. Schuen's gestures that prove she isn't just another, a man who cancels other plans when she's upset, a man who introduces her as my woman instead of just a friend, a man who makes decisions with her in mind even when easier paths lead elsewhere. But because society teaches women to hide this kind of desire, to not want too much, many never admit it. They smile. They play coy. They pretend they don't care if he's texting others. But in quiet moments, their heart shakes. Because choosing her fully in a world full of distractions is her deepest secret fantasy. The man who awakens this fantasy doesn't have to promise the world. He just has to consistently show she matters more than the rest. in choices, in loyalty, in small moments. That consistency builds the fortress she wants to shelter in. 5. The fantasy of being seen. Brains, body, and battle scars. She knows how to dress up. She knows how to carry herself. But what she often fantasizes about in silence is being completely seen. Not just for her beauty, but for her intellect, her scars, her unresolved fears. She wants a man who notices the layers beneath her polished surface. In this fantasy, her struggle is optional, not shameful. Her vulnerability isn't hidden, it's honored. Her intelligence isn't muted, it's celebrated. Her past pain isn't glossed over, it's recognized. She wants someone who sees the full spectrum of who she is and who stays. Psychology speaks about integrated identity and attachment, the part of human need that wants not only love, but to be known. Research into women's fantasies, e.g. fantasies involving submission, power dynamics, or emotional depth, suggests that many of their daydreams blend eroticism with deep emotional safety, that place where she can reveal her wounded parts without fear of rejection. Wikipedia, +3, Scholarworks, .uvm.edu, +3 Tangled Tales blogs, +3. If you want to awaken this fantasy, it's not about grand gestures. It's about showing up, remembering what she said once in a whisper, laughing at the parts she thinks no one catches, letting her show her battle scars without flinching, validating her intellect, dreams, and fears. Because when a woman feels seen, not just admired, she stops putting up walls, she softens, and love becomes not just desire, but devotion. If you're ready to uncover more of these hidden truths about female psychology, the ones women hope you'll never figure out, hit that subscribe button right now and drop the word secret in the comments if you've ever felt like a woman wanted more from you than she was willing to admit. Because once you know these hidden desires, you'll never miss the signals again.